Hello and welcome to the Michael Valdes Global Podcast. Today's guest, oh my God, this is going to be a fun one. I have the great privilege of having Phil Hahn on the show today. Phil is one of the top real estate professionals in the entire country of Canada, and I am so thrilled to have you here, my brother. Welcome.
Michael, thank you. Thank you very much for having me. It's an absolute privilege and an honor.
And look at you, all dressed up, all sharp. I feel underdressed. I love this. You look great,
well, you know, Michael, coming
you.
from you, that's quite the compliment because, I mean, you set a pretty high bar when it comes to fashion. So we're always commenting on what's Michael going to be wearing today. You know, it's always dialed in. So that's awesome. Thank you.
Well, my brother, tell me, how did you even get started in this crazy business of ours?
Yeah, you know, Michael, before we get started, I actually, I wanted to do a bit of a shameless plug here and a commendation. I remember when you partnered with EXP back in, I think it was May of 2020, and
exactly.
You know, we were about 28,000 agents at that point in time in 4 countries. And, you know, we fast forward and, you know, you had a pedigree and a track record of, you know, running one of the largest real estate company in the world and largest brand aggregator and a very successful track record. So we were so very honored and excited. And now we fast forward, my goodness, only 2.5 years later. And here we are in 23 countries, 22. And then we just announced our 23rd this past week in Poland and 84,000 plus agents strong. And so, Michael, like you've been in the real estate space and the leadership space and building companies for years, like this is unprecedented. And, you know, how many of these companies did you actually even have to get on a plane to visit to open over the last couple of years?
My God, you got your script, didn't you, my brother? So
you know what? Maybe I'm interviewing you now.
First of all, thank you for those words. But, you know, it wasn't me. It was a wonderful team that I'm surrounded with and this wonderful model. It would not have happened without the combination of those two incredible elements and the idea that we have been able to expand into 20 countries in less than 2 years without ever getting on a plane. So never visited a single one of them. I mean, I did once they opened, but not to open. And this was all during a pandemic. This is crazy. This could not have happened. And you're absolutely right. It was unprecedented in our industry. And that's something that has been just incredible. But we're going to talk about EXP a little bit later in this program. But thank you for those words. Tell the audience how you got started in this crazy business, my friend.
So yeah, thanks, Michael. So it was in the early 2000s, and from early 90s to early 2000s, I was in the automotive business. Arbitrage. I first started off selling cars, you know, the traditional retail operation as a salesperson, and then I branched out on my own and had a wholesale arbitrage business where I was shipping cars all over the world, and I did that for about 5 years, and that industry kind of went on its ear in the early 2000s, and there needed to be a shift. And so my spouse came home one day and said, you know, take a look at this. It was the real estate book, how to become a realtor book, basically. And so I read it and I said, I don't know if I can do this. You know, this is they're all a lot older than I am, and you know, I don't know if I can do this. And so I decided to take a sabbatical, Michael, and I actually work construction. So I'm a cement finisher and a paver by trade, road builder. And so that's the Sicilian side. And was working as a cement finisher, doing concrete, supporting my wife and 3 kids at the time. And, you know, studying for the real estate course evenings and weekends, right? And, you know, I was getting really excited about it. And I was thinking, okay, I'm going to get back in it. You know, I lost 30 pounds in the first 90 days doing the cement finishing because, you know, I went from having highfalutin lunches and all this to, you know, eating a nice sandwich and, you know, sweating my socks off all day. And so I lost all this weight and I was getting really focused and dialed in. And so I had a goal, and I got involved with Tom Hopkins back then. Yeah. It was Champions Unlimited or Champions Realty or whatever his coaching program was at the time. And I said, okay, I'm going to hire this guy because he's got a pretty cool coaching program. And so I digested all of that stuff. and had a goal to sell 100 houses from April 2002 to December 31st, 2002. And so I put that, I joined a local national company, great company, my former company was, and put that goal, they gave me a nice little office, so I put that goal all over the wall, and I just put the number 100 so that I would see it, right? It'd be in my reticular activator in my subconscious, I'd see that number all the time. And I was completely uncapitalized, had no money, and decided to print out some flyers at the Staples saying that I would be collecting non-perishable items for the local food bank. And so what I would do is I would go in my community and I'd door knock 6 hours a day, 4 to 5 days a week, give out the flyer, ask for some non-perishable items, and ask the people if they knew of anyone that was interested in either buying or selling real estate, and could I offer them a complimentary market evaluation. And this was my strategy, and it rang well with me because I was paying it forward. And I thought, okay, look, this is a value add. I'm seen as a community builder, and I'm also, introducing myself as the local area expert for, our company, right? And so that turned out extremely well, and I got some great traction. I'd show up at the food bank, and they'd be like, "My goodness, like, what is this?" I'd have a minivan full every week, and so they were ecstatic. And so I got some good media traction on that as well. And again, it was a good cause, right? And so the end of my first year, I hired a coach, Craig Proctor coach, which was absolutely phenomenal. And I went to a conference, and I came back and I sat my broker owner down. And this was one, in life, how they say you've got a few times where people will touch or have an impact in your life, and it's going to, you'll see, you'll have some pretty substantial influence. And so I sat my broker owner down, and the manager broker the office, and they came in, and I said, okay, so I want to tell you my goal. In 2003, I'm going to sell 200 houses. And the managing broker and the broker owner crossed their arms, and they kind of leaned back in their chair, and they said, well, no one's ever done that. And then they said, can't you be happy with what you've done? And I was expecting them to completely cheerlead and be as excited about my goals as I was. Okay.
Sure.
And they weren't. They weren't. And so that was like a red light, an alarm flashing, Michael, saying, my goodness, you know what? This is probably not an environment that is conducive to your massive success and to where you want to be. So
let me stop you there, because you've just sort of given so much information, which is brilliant. So you started from an incredibly different industry. You didn't have anyone that you knew in this industry. You started from scratch.
Zero.
And then you came in and you said, let me sort of build a better mousetrap here. You've understood how to get licensed and all of that. And you're not going to go and compete with what you sort of said. Everybody else has been doing it for a long time. I don't know how to compete with that. And you found a way. You came in and you sort of said, I want to do good for the community. And by the way, I also do real estate. And you started building something there. And then the people that you were working with, who you actually wanted to sort of have your back there and be able to sort of support what your goals were bigger than the people that you were working for. And at that point, you realize, I can't be here anymore. But that's such belief in yourself, which is extraordinary. And you actually went on to run the #1 team for that company in your country, which is extraordinary, because it is the largest real estate company by agent count in the world. And that's extraordinary that you ran the #1 team in all of Canada. How did you actually build that? Because that's extraordinary, Phil.
So Michael, yes. So thank you for that. And so after that conversation, that's how we actually segue into this. So I went home and I talked to my spouse. I said, honey, I don't think this is a match. And so I started exploring options, right? And this was in, I want to say early 2003. And a small company had come. So fast forward, 2 weeks later, I was told that I wasn't allowed to put my listings on the sales board anymore, because it was alienating my colleagues, because there were too many of my listings on it. And I wasn't allowed to put, Michael, listen, and this is where it gets really crazy. Then I wasn't allowed to put my open houses on the tour. We would do a tour every Wednesday, and I'd usually have 3 or 4 new listings every week. So everybody would be going through my properties, and that was alienating my colleagues as well. So I wasn't allowed to put my house. This is from that same broker owner and managing broker situation.
Hey guys, thank you so much for all of your amazing support on the podcast. I want to invite you to click on my link below in the bio, and I want you guys to ask me questions. I want you to be a part of my future show, which is just a Q&A. It's an Ask Michael episode, and I'd love to answer all your questions. See you soon.
So it became very, very apparent when I bought a Hummer and I logoed it up and put my name all over it and parked it. I parked it out front of the office, and then they told me I couldn't park my Hummer in the office parking lot because people thought I now own the office, and it was alienating my colleagues. Okay, so Michael, it was not a match, brother. It was not a match. Okay,
you had to get out.
I had to get out. So I went, and there was this company that had just come into town from Texas, Austin, Texas, a little red company by the name of Keller Williams. And I went and sat down with the gentleman that was instrumental in Keller Williams' growth in Canada. And I said, who's, by the way, now with EXP as well, which is amazing. Yeah. And I said, I told him what I was going through. And he said, and he looked back at me and he said, well, how can you align? Like, how can you do that? You can't do that. You're not being authentic. You're not being true to you, to your family, and this and that. And so he really challenged me, Michael, to the point where I went home and I couldn't sleep. And needless to say, a week later, we were gone, and took all of our listings, sat with the broker owner at the former company. And he said, Michael, he said, of everyone that, would leave, you were the last people I wanted to see leave, which I thought very interesting.
And yet he did nothing to keep you.
No, nothing. And he was, so went to KW, and it was late 2003, and the franchise owner pulls me in the office, and he's like, did you know that you're already #1 in Canada, KW? I'm like, what? I didn't even know, because I was just, I didn't know how to keep track. I didn't know what was going on. And he's like, yeah. And by the way, you're like, at that time I was top 50 in the world. And it was just, it was amazing, but it was just really, really hard work and paying it forward, Michael. And, people don't know how care how much you know until they know how much you care, right? We know that.
That's right.
And having a sincere interest in others and in your team, like we were talking about maintaining team culture, right? And that kind of stuff. And how do we maintain that? A lot of connection, a lot of social events, a lot of, cooking breakfast for the local mission, food drives together. We would do that kind of stuff together. And culture, like we had co-signed for some of our members' homes, mortgages, helped them with situations, like it was family, right? And we had no turnover, and people were making a lot of money. And when you're making a lot of money and you're happy and you're in a place where you're heard and validated, there's really no need to shift. And so we built a pretty strong culture in doing that. And Keller Williams at the time was a match for us. It was a great company, definitely a big disruptor when they came to market in 1983.
So Phil, a question for you. You're saying that building of that culture of your team, right? But there's only one Phil Hahn. And when clients want to have you, and now that's impossible because you can't clone yourself and you can't grow to be the #1 team unless you have other associates on your team. So how do you create the culture with representing what you would do with your associates for your clients? Because that's the culture that I was sort of interested in, because I know who you are, I know your heart, and I know that everyone that's around you knows your heart. So that's easy. How do you do that when it's consumer facing?
Michael, that's a great question. And so ego. So you've got to remove yourself from the equation, and you've got to understand, Michael, as you know, having run teams, most of your business life is if the success depends on you, you don't own a business. It's a high paying job, but it's not you. And so what people really want, Michael, is they want the outcome that you bring to the table. It's not you, it's that outcome. And so we remove ourselves. And I learned that anything that I could delegate where someone could do, to 70 to 80% of my ability, I would take that off my plate and I would leverage. And I also learned in the real estate game to not build teams with my name in them. Okay, because if your name's in it, then you're right. They want the guy. They want the guy on the side, or they're going to say, especially with the driver clients, right? And I was dealing with high net worth and ultra high net worth clients, and I'll send you some of our videos of some of our homes we did, and where we chartered helicopters, and we had live dancers and concerts at the properties and crazy stuff. But they wanted the outcome, Michael. And so what I realized is that when I would send the team members out, people would love it. And here's when I really realized that this machine was working, was when my own friends had bought and sold property with my team members, and I had no idea.
I love that.
And they wouldn't want to deal with me anymore. They wanted to deal with my team member. So that to me was the leverage piece. So it's about wanting the outcome that we represent and the value props that we bring to the table, and not that individual. So you got to remove yourself from it, basically. Take the ego out of it.
Great answer. That's a great answer. So tell me then how you found EXP. You were the number one in KW. How did you find EXP, and when did you sort of come over? When did you
Michael,
make that?
one of my biggest blunders in history, okay? I had my original realtor, Stefano Gabellini from Ottawa, my original realtor from 30 years ago, and friend who's an accomplished musician, just all around great guy, knocking on my door about EXP since 2015.
Come on.
Michael, I'm not kidding. This guy's knocking. He's sending me direct messages. He's calling me. He's saying, look, Gene Frederick just joined your buddy from Keller Williams. Like, you need to look at this. And Michael, I was so transactional and caught up in the Kool-Aid and that I wouldn't even look at anything. I wouldn't look at it. Then my partner and I were in Austin, Texas in August of 2017. This is roughly about 2 years of Steve sending me stuff. But I said, honey, we were at Franchise Systems Orientation, which is to get more market centers for Keller Williams. And at the time I was talking to the president of KW Worldwide and looking at getting European regions. So like I was this close to making that decision. And I said, why don't we watch this video? So we're sitting there, we're at the JW Marriott in Austin, Texas, August 2017. And I watched, and it was one of the old OSG videos from Rob Fleck. And I knew Rob Fleck from the KW days, and I definitely knew Gene. And I listened to this video, and I'm like, I'm a numbers guy, right, Michael? So I'm like, well, I think there were, I don't know, 1,000 realtors, maybe 2,000 at the time. I'm like, if these guys do what they say they're going to do, this is going to change the game completely. And Michael, I couldn't sleep. Okay. So we go down. There was a really cool terrace type pool and hot tub. So we go down there, and all of a sudden there's a fire alarm going at the JW Marriott in Austin, Texas. And so we have to, and of course, when there's a fire alarm, you got to walk down the stairs. And this thing's probably like, it's only 5 or 6 stories up in the air, but I want to say it was 30 or 40 flights that we had to walk down, small flights. And so we walk down, we're in our bathing suits, sitting on a park bench on the street corner while all the fire trucks and the first responders are coming and the hotel's being evacuated. And we're just talking about this. I'm talking about this with my partner, and she's like, and she's a numbers person too. And we're like, honey, like, this is unbelievable. So this is 2017. I start talking to Glenn. I start talking to people, former KW people. All of a sudden, I'm seeing all these people that I knew that I had a tremendous amount of respect for plugging in. And I knew Glenn from the KW days. I always knew Glenn was like some kind of a tech lead generating guy. You know what I mean? He was out there. Like he was, he's always, 10 steps ahead of where the ball was going.
Still is.
Wayne Gretzky analogy. And so, Glenn and I ended up going out for a lovely dinner at a nice Italian restaurant in Vancouver, talked for hours and hours, reconnected, shared his vision, was extremely, as you know, he's extremely humble and transparent, shared his setbacks, we shared our setbacks, and it was just a phenomenal reconnection, Michael. And man, it was done like dinner, and then I got the EXP insomnia, I was just all in. And, again, look where we are today, right? And we're just getting started, Michael. Isn't that the crazy part?
We're just getting started. But you know what? I call that divine intervention, that fire alarm happened, that you were able to take the breath to really be able to have the conversation with your wife about what you wanted to do and about what this opportunity was. I call that divine intervention because, as you were saying, you had your head down. You were just working. You were the number one person in the country. So it's like, you were intrigued, but you also couldn't stop because you were on this hamster wheel. That fire alarm made you stop.
Yeah. And it's like my
That's
business
crazy.
partner, Randy Dick, always says, deals were my drug of choice, right? It's your
Yes.
drug of choice, the next deal, the next sale, the next sale. And
Yeah.
so, yeah. And
So
sorry, go ahead.
now tell me a little bit, because now you've had an amazing career right up to this point. Tell me what the greatest lesson you've learned in your career thus far has been.
Humility,
What I love that.
vulnerability, authenticity, and I think humility and vulnerability are key ones for me, Michael. And understanding, and Darren Jacklin, our longest standing board member and independent board director, who's also Canadian, says, you're either coming out of a storm, heading into one, or in a storm, right? And so, it's to understand that life is full of setbacks, right? And so, that failure is not an identity, but an event, and a necessary event to move forward, right? And that most of us, we have to learn to remove the you from failure and understand that it is a necessary event to moving forward to success. And so humility has been a big one.
And you certainly personify that in the years that I've known you now. It's been such a privilege because you are one of the most humble people that I've met. And tell me a little bit about, now you started in the early 2000s, right? You've actually seen a lot of market corrections, as have I. We started probably around the same time. And then, most people listening to this and most people that are in the industry now have only known an up market. They don't even know what a price reduction is. Right. And so when you start looking at this group of people, tell me what 3 pieces of advice you would give somebody who is entering the business today. We're going to go into a shifting market.
Yeah, absolutely, Michael. Number one, the best realtors are salespeople. Okay. So you need to develop your sales skills. Okay. Study the masters, Tom Hopkins, Brian Tracy, Zig Ziglar, Grant Cardone. There's tons of great training. We have our own coaching company, Success Coaching, which is absolutely fantastic. Plug in and get training. Okay. Work on your sales skills. Understand that you need to be a salesperson. Social media, the internet, online lead gen they're all phenomenal tools, but we need to know how to communicate, how to qualify, how to overcome objections, how to create a sense of urgency. Okay. So that's a big one, is developing the salesperson. Developing your public speaking skills, join Toastmasters. Okay. Michael, you're a phenomenal public speaker. Like when you come to the stage, your energy, it comes through. People, you tell stories and everybody's, jazzed. You leave a Michael Valdes session, you want to rip someone's head off. You're like, let's go. Right. And so it's that energy, that enthusiasm that you got to bring to the table. Work. Okay. Go knock on doors, speak to the people, meet people. Be intentional with your meetings and meeting people, and let everybody know that you're in the space of doing real estate. The reality is that we are in a new market, but houses still sell.
That's right.
Prices up, prices down. This last 2 years, Michael, none of us foresaw this. This is crazy, right? That was a completely new market that none of us anticipated, and now we're just in a new market here. And so knowing your local market conditions, your macro and your micro markets, because real estate is a local services business. And so a market, in your city might be terrible, but yet a small community, Soho may be doing amazing while Chelsea's in the toilet. Chelsea's doing fantastic while Upper East Side is terrible. You know what I mean? And that's just how it is. And that's how we have to look at it. And so being an expert on your local market data and knowing the numbers so that you can educate people in terms of the reality versus the global macro versus the micro, I think is very important.
Those are great. It's really just going back to the basics, right? Because that's what always keeps you centered. I always sort of say it doesn't matter what the market is. Our job is to bring buyer and seller together. The market determines the price.
That's it. That's it. Yeah.
That's all we're doing.
That's right.
That's it. That's all we're doing. Now, Phil, you influence so many people. And when people follow you, they truly listen to what you're saying, like what you're sharing, just even on this podcast. But I'm curious, who was most influential for you in your life and why?
Yeah, that'd be my dad, Michael. And my dad passed in summer of 16 in his early 70s from cancer. And my father was a an unbelievable leader and worker, and a very, very successful businessman. Came to Canada with no money, the typical immigrant story from Europe. Had nothing and built, a significant business. Was an amazing provider. Wasn't always necessarily the best communicator, but we knew that we were loved and that we were supported and validated. And he taught me how to work. He used to always say, he didn't know how to say the saying right, but he'd say, you need to step on your own 2 feet or whatever. He would say it in the wrong way because of his accent, but, something that he always said, step on your own 2 feet, or don't have a hair of an elephant in your hand, meaning lazy, the hair of the elephant, you're lazy. It's some French analogy or German analogy, but seeing my dad work. And I remember, Michael, as a kid, he used to do, he had about half a dozen high-end beauty salons and 150 to 200 staff members at any time. And he used to do his payroll on the Paymaster, with the old machines.
I remember that, of course. Yes.
Yeah. And so Sunday mornings, I'd wake up at 5 a.m. to hearing that machine going for hours, him cutting the checks. And so he was just a great worker and a great leader. And again, a real servant leader to his people, very, very little turnover. And, hairdressers that had been with him 20, 30, 35 years. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Which is, unusual in the industry. Right. So, and again, just, love it on people. So yeah, he would definitely be the most influential person in my life.
Well, I wish I would have known him, because it's so many qualities that you possess. I'm sure it came directly from him. That's
Thanks.
amazing. And okay, so you started in the automotive industry. You are a superstar legend in real estate. If you weren't doing any one of those 2 things, what would Phil Hahn be doing?
Michael, it's a really tough question, because I am where I want to be. Here's what I would do more of. How about that? I would be writing more fiction.
Really?
A lot of people don't know that. Yeah, I love to write fiction. And I'm inspired by kind of a backwoods author by the name of Charles Bukowski. There's a movie called Barfly, the script was written by Barbette Schroeder, and it's based on his life as a postman, Henry Chinaski. And so, I would be writing more. I think that's what I would like to do, is more fiction, more writing.
Now I want to read what you've written. Oh, this is amazing. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's something I'm a secret writer, but it's something that I'm very passionate about, actually.
The different layers of Phil. I love this. This is awesome. All right, I'm going to ask you one final question. This is a question that I ask all of my guests, and I always love this one. So, Phil, in your book of life, what is this chapter called and why?
Absolutely, Michael. This is chapter 1, and it's called Just Getting Started.
Wow.
And I believe, Michael, that where I'm at right now in my life is just the very beginning, and I think that, we, remember when we were in Dallas, oh my gosh, that was just a few weeks ago. And
a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, that amazing session we had, and where Gene was talking about, our most productive decades, right? Like, is from your 60s to your 70s, right? And so I find that we live in a culture that unfortunately tends to shelve people, like in their, your mid 50s or 60s, you got to retire. That's not where I'm at. I know that's definitely not where you're at, right? Like, we're just getting started. And so, Michael, I truly feel that I'm in my infancy. So it would be chapter 1, just getting started.
I love that. Phil, I got to tell you, my brother, you're an incredible human being, but you're an incredible leader in our industry. You're a great family man. You care so much about people. And you showed that again today with this conversation in the lives that you will assuredly touch with your wisdom and knowledge. And I thank you, my brother. Thank you so much for being on this.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you for having me. And thank you for your amazing leadership and, spearheading our growth efforts. And, again, opening up 23 countries in 2 years. So just boggles the mind. You tell people we're
doing it all together.
Exactly. You
got it. We're only getting started.
We are only getting started. Yeah.
My brother, awesome. Thank you all so very much. And thank you all for listening. This has been the Michael Valdes Global Podcast.
Hi, this is Michael Valdes, reminding you to subscribe to all of these podcast channels, and we'll see you in the audience.